The Rock, Gary Vaynerchuk, Kylie Jenner, Ryan Reynolds, all these celebrities are making their money by starting or investing in brands. This is what a lot of people don't see behind the curtain. You see these celebrities who are making hundreds of millions of dollars or worth $1 billion, but it's not just because they're actors or actresses or they're famous. It's because they're building brands. Rihanna has made more money from her brands than she's made in her entire music career. And one of my favorite stories behind all these is Rob Dyrdek. Rob Dyrdek, in fact, built an entire machine behind this thesis of taking the knowledge and the relationships and the capital and the exposure that he has and pumping out brands. He calls it the Dyrdek machine. And Rob started a podcast called Build with Rob in order to document the journey. What do you know? He's like following the playbook. Build with Rob is about documenting the journey behind these brands that he's building inside of the Dyrdek machine. I invited Rob on the podcast because I wanted to hear all about this. I wanted to hear about his thesis behind brands. I also wanted to hear how he structures his day, how he stacks the deck to be successful as an entrepreneur, not just to be famous or to be a successful skateboarder, but to be a really successful entrepreneur too. This is the playbook that even really successful people are following in order to have multi-million-dollar businesses. And it's the same playbook that I've seen work for so many entrepreneurs. So if you want to see what that playbook is, go over to capitalism.com/playbook. You can download the roadmap to getting to 100 sales a day, which is $1 million business. And you can follow in the footsteps of people like Rob Dyrdek, who we're going to go hang out with right now.
It's great to meet you. I'm so glad we were put in touch. I've been looking forward to chatting with you. Welcome to capitalism.com.
Thank you so much for having me.
Rob, I wanted to kick things off by telling you that you're the person that I want to be when I grow up, because you have a TV show, you invest in a bunch of different businesses, and you seem to be having a great time while doing it. So my first question for you, Rob, is on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you?
Well, let me say, I think you should want to grow up to be like me, because I am a 10 of a 10 almost every day on happiness, right? But that is by complete design, right? And from years of optimization, so that I understood what really makes me happy, then designed a life around that, then optimized it in such a way that truly, I almost rarely even have a negative thought is at the depth of how much happiness and balance that I have in my life. And I do think it should be everybody's goal in life to grow into that level of happiness,
So I didn't expect you to say that, that was something that you optimized for, but it has been my observation in seeing you, at least publicly, that you seem to be having a great time at everything that you're doing. And where I'm at in my own personal life is kind of realizing that if you prioritize that, all of the other important things seem to fall into place. Yeah. So when did that start becoming the metric that you were optimizing for?
I mean, look, I used to have a ton of fun on the camera and in the front facing, but would be chaos behind it. Right. And not chaos in like a depression sort of way, but in you're working so hard, but where are you going?
Yeah.
Where is all of this leading to? And what does all of this mean? And at the same time, I was like, what type of business person do I want to be? You have all these different companies, you have all these different things. And in that sort of journey of trying to get clarity on sort of who I was as a person and what type of business person did I want to be, I found a business book called Start at the End. And it was written by this consultancy group based here in Los Angeles. And it's just in concept, it was like, know what you want out of a business before you ever start it. Do you want to build it to sell? Do you want to make it $5 million and $2 million in profit and split the profit? What do you want to do? But what really it made me realize is, why don't I apply that to my life? And I think I started at that point of like, well, who do I really want to be? What is the ideal version of my life? And what does that look like? And then I began to see my life as sort of these interconnected systems. And I started first with designing the life that a life plan and the life that I wanted to live. And then I evolved and grew into the person that I am today. Right. And what what happens when you do that, almost in anything, right? When you want to write a book, you're going to start a podcast, you're going to start a business. It starts first with the idea. Then you go through this diligence, you learn about it, right? Then you decide, oh, I'm going to do it. You go through a build phase, then you launch it. And then you realize this is way harder than I thought. Like, this is chaos. Like, then you fight to get through. Once you get through the launch, you finally, once you actually do something, you begin to realize how much you don't fully understand about it. At some point, there's a horizon where you grasp it all, and now you create a more clear plan to achieve it. That's when you find product market fit in business and scale. In life, it's when you become, your experience begins to turn to expertise, right? But I saw how that all worked in life. And as I grew into the life that I live today, like, you evolve into becoming, you expand into your ideal person and ideal life. Then you're like, wow, this is amazing. I just created reality. Then every day is about living optimized and healthy and happy and all of these things.
So I'm jiving with everything that you're saying, but I know that I've fallen into the trap, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs fall into this trap of, they set the goal and then agree to be miserable until they hit the goal.
Yeah.
I don't pick up that that's the plan you followed.
I don't even believe in that.
Tell me more.
Right. Because it's at the end of the day, like, most times you set a goal, you can only make that goal through the base of your existing knowledge. Right. And the only thing that you can break it down into a handful of milestones. Right. And then, like, you must absolutely believe that you're going to get to the first milestone. Right. Because you get pulled by goals, right? And you get pulled, goals, progression towards these milestones generates belief in you, right? And when you have the belief, you have the energy to keep pushing and be patient, because you're making progress in these milestones. If you're not making progress towards that first milestone, and you keep trying everything over and over, but you just keep your eyes on the big prize, but you can't make any progress, that's where it's going to be extraordinarily miserable, right? When you're making clear progress and hitting milestones and getting on to the next one and getting better and better at creating clarity in your path to your big idea, filled with energy, filled with excitement, plenty of patience, because you can actually see now, oh, it's going to take 5 years, not 3 years like I thought, but I'm still making progress. That's where it comes from. It's only those that put an anchor in a goal that they don't fully understand, that they're miserable because they're just not ever getting close to it. And even those, a lot of entrepreneurs, it is, you hear many stories of, like, where, I just tried, it took me 10 years and then I had the breakthrough, right? And I'm not saying that that's not, a one way to do it. I just believe that's the hardest possible way to do it. And it's because you're not learning and evolving in the right direction to accelerate your pathway to that big goal. It's almost like escape velocity of the earth. You've got to begin to generate enough energy and clarity. Then once you understand where you're heading so much better, you go there so much faster, right?
So I'm processing this as you're saying this, I want to ask you how you deal with setbacks then, but I'm assuming that because you have prioritized happiness in all other areas of your life, that setbacks don't feel like absolute death to you. Whereas a lot of entrepreneurs, business is their life, or business is such a deep desire that every setback feels like a reminder of feeling like a failure. Is it your priority of happiness that allows you to keep that momentum even when you get punched in the face?
Well, look, I think it's also, I grew to here, right? Like, I used to be in chaos, right? I was acquiring companies, I was starting companies, and I did so many different companies, right? I was like, and I couldn't understand, why wasn't it working? Like, oh my God, like, now I'm like, this one worked, why did this one not work, right? There was so much chaos. And when I finally decided, like, okay, I'm going to expand into the type of entrepreneur that I want to be, but it was never just about business, right? Or about television. It was about life. What type of life did I want? And so what are some of the things that bother me with life? Okay, well, as an entrepreneur and someone that does a lot of risk taking, how do you offset that risk, right? Okay, well, you invest like the capital that you earn into cash flowing assets that are
Amen.
passive, that give you the balance of your high risk, really aggressive, big return stuff that you're trying to master on your side, right? So now as you grow like that direction, now you have a deeper foundation, a sense of security. You get more consistent, you get better, you get smarter, you get more security, you have more value, you operate with more energy, right? You operate more efficiently, you're more automated, you're more optimized, right? So you grow into that. And so to me, part of my goal was, how do I build, a friend of mine referred to it as, I've never met anybody in my life that defends happiness like you do. And I really built this entire world around me that has insulated me in such a way that setbacks they're never reactive setbacks. And when you get to this level, you are seeing all of the places where you are most likely going to get hit. And it's like, that's the risk assessment. So you can proactively, now you're trying to make pivots, seeing that hit coming, rather than all of a sudden you get hit with it as it was earlier. So now I'm trying to fight these clear setbacks that I can see coming before they get there. And then by the time they're inevitable, I've come to peace with them before I've had to deal with them. Most people get hit by a hammer, especially if you're early and you're young, or you've put, all of your money into an idea, all your time, energy, and soul. And think of so many people's businesses just died in 3 months. And when the pandemic hit, right? Yeah. And it's just it's the misfortune of the industry, the time, the opportunity, and the station in your life at that point, right? Of depending on these outside forces, where someone like me, I keep 5 years of cash of my lifestyle expenses. I have my entire lifestyle expensive is paid through my passive cash flowing income. So when the pandemic hits for someone like me, I don't even I'm like, this is crazy, but it doesn't affect my way of life. Doesn't affect, what do? Okay, I get time off from shooting so much TV. I'm going to double down and push forward on all the stuff I want to build and launch with my venture studio and launching my media side and that sort of stuff. So again, I built that system, a life system and a life plan, and grew into it in a way that I don't have work-life balance. I live a highly balanced, highly optimized existence in all aspects, right? So you basically, and what's the center of that? I'm just peace, happiness, and energy, right? You go from thing to thing all day that you love doing. Now I grew into that. And even being that balanced and that optimized, of being a father of 2 and a husband, and, having 16 businesses and shooting 250 episodes of television a year and having a podcast and working on all the projects that I'm working on, I still do all of that within the allotted 30% of time that I give to work. I spend the other 30% with my family, the other 10% working on my health, uncompromised, and then the other 30% sleeping, right? So through all this, I never compromised being balanced as I built all this over the last, 6-7 years. And then what did that make me better at? I'm super good at being balanced, because you don't just all of a sudden, I'm going to work less and hang out with my wife more. Yeah. You have to design it, then eventually automate it, then optimize it to be able to grow into this level of balance.
Yeah, there seems to be, and this is my own work as part of my journey right now, but it seems to be that when you can prioritize energy and prioritize happiness, which is such a filler word for being optimistic and feeling full of energy and pursuing the things that you enjoy, that you tend to have more time, because you have the actual focus and the capacity to put into the things that show up for you. And my next question for you was, with everything that you do have going on, how do you work in things like the new podcast that you just launched, or investing in that next project, even having the capacity to review that project? Because I imagine that your calendar gets filled faster than most entrepreneurs. So how do you protect that capacity from going to a bunch of different directions?
So here, number one is you have a limited amount of capacity, period. Right? Period. Right. So it's not like I use 30% of my time to do all of this. That is TV, podcasts, build companies, all that. So I know I have this finite amount of time. So there's only one way that you gain capacity, right? You automate, right? So then it becomes effortless, right? Or you hire, right? And so for me now, and most people, they don't know why they hire somebody to try to help them do more, but they don't understand. They're not hiring them for the right reasons. They're hiring them hoping they will show them how to be more efficient, better, do this job cleaner, faster, whatever it may be, versus where you get to a state where for me, it's like every time I put a body in, it's now 50 more hours a week that of capacity for me. And because I'm asking it to be so much more specific as it relates to the whole of what I'm hoping to achieve or do, right? So when I do a podcast, I hired, the previous head of Forbes Entertainment to come in and help me build out my media side, and starting first with the podcast, right? And then I have that expertise and that focus on developing and build that. But it's hard. It's still hard, takes a lot of time, right? And so I know that I got to drive this to automation, right? So as I'm even doing the podcast and I'm trying different ways of doing it, because I'm looking to find a way that I can get the highest quality content with the least amount of effort, right? And then eventually drive that to where it's systematized, and then I can optimize it over time to where it becomes effortless. And the perfect example of that is ridiculousness, right? I shoot 250 episodes a year of television, and it's exactly 4% of my total time and 12% of my total work time in the year, right? So and that is from extraordinary levels of getting it automated and then getting it to deep levels of optimization, right? And from shooting 2 episodes over a 12-hour period to shooting 6 in a 4-hour period, right? That's the depth and reducing pre-production time from weeks to half hours, right? That's the depth of optimization over time. Now, and you got to manage your capacity. You got to know when you do something new that it takes way more energy and all this stuff, and keep in mind, I have an 80-page document called The Rhythm of Existence. That is basically the operating system for my life. And it's managed by my chief of staff and 2 assistants. And that goes down into the food that gets delivered and how the cats are handled to, every last aspect, to getting a haircut every Friday at 9:30, all these things that I can eliminate. And of course and if something occurs, a pipe breaks in my house, I'm not it's pipe broke, there's a leak and all, I don't even have to think twice about it. The system is built to come in and handle it, where that could break a normal person during the day of I gotta call a plumber, whatever it may be. But again, this is from the lens, I refer to it as a machine mindset, right? How do you get to where everything is automated and your capacity? To me, it's I did so much in the spring, launched the foundation, launched the podcast, launched doing a whole apparel line, entirely new brand, launched MindRight, Luso Cloud, our footwear brand, all these things, and started doing press again and podcasts. I didn't do it for years, and man, I was pinned against it, right? I was pinned against it, and
Against your
it was,
capacity, you mean?
yeah, I overshot it, right? So I had to make, and then what was suffering was how I was organizing all of these new things inside my business flow structure, right? Which made me have to stop. But you know, when you get over capacity, you don't, it's like anything else. You don't just like, I got to get back. Because you are experiencing in the present what you created in the past, right? And what you get to do in the future, you get to create in the present.
Mm.
And I knew I had got myself here. So now I couldn't just stop. I had to now build a plan to get myself out of it. And part of that was I had to restructure even how I built my company, right? And categorize it into 9 separate divisions. And then on Mondays, I had to switch my Mondays to half-hour calls with the heads of every single division, and spending 2 hours in the morning organizing what I want to speak to them, make all of them do hot sheets that all go into my main hot sheet that allowed me to make sure that we were on the same page and never all of our priorities were in order, so I could start each week clear and have everybody clear, rather than before I tried to just let these standing meetings like fill in the blanks. But you can't do that with so many integrated moving parts when you're trying to build something at this level, right? But I felt it, and immediately stopped, and then reorganized the whole. And that's a big reorganization when you got to restructure the way your company even works, and then restructure your entire weeks and force everybody to kind of follow behind. But then I immediately got back my capacity, started to automate how we dealt with all the different groups and different things, and then my capacity got back to manageable and no longer putting pressure on me.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear you say this selfishly, because I'm going through a similar transformation myself. And my like wants to figure everything out part of my brain wants to know how you did that. But I assume that starts with just that commitment to protect happiness, to defend happiness, and to protect your capacity, knowing that you're only going to have 30% of your time dedicated to this. And when you're up against that, now being proactive to create the next chapter. Am I summarizing you fairly?
Yeah. And look, and it goes back to that commitment. I wasn't like, oh, I gotta like carve into my wife time or
Gotta
my
work
kids
more.
time. Yeah, I was not, because that's what most people do, especially, super driven people, right? Because I consider this system I've created to protect me from me, because my old tendency was to like, I got to work for the next 3 days, like 18 hours a day to get caught up. Right. And it's like, that's not sustainable, because then I would just then be exhausted and like, even though I haven't done this since I've been married, it's how I used to be getting married and kids. But like, back then I would like just work so hard. Then I would need to like go party and relax for a week, because I was like so continually fighting the balance like over and over. Right. But your commitment to it is what, and then it's awareness, right? You have to like, I track every single hour of the day. Right. And I have it all there's these scripts, and it's all automated and pumps into these dashboards, and I tag them. So I have these beautiful dashboards of how I spend my time exactly. It's extraordinary, right? So I could show you, I'm not saying I'm balanced. I could show you the numbers of how balanced I am. Right. And so what that does is just, that's extreme, right? Most people aren't willing. To me, it's just how I live now, so I don't even like think twice about it. But when I started, it was like, oh, this is crazy, you're tracking every single hour. But it's like you've mastered time, and when you understand how you spend your time, and then you lay that on top of like, how do you feel, right? Like you're mastering your energy, right? So when that becomes your commitment, when you get over capacity in work, you have to figure out a way, and that may be releasing something or stopping to do something, but you get good enough to, when you look at everything, like I design it, automate it, optimize it, you get really good at understanding like being patient of like, I just got to get this to automation, then I can make it better and better. You can give yourself 3 or 4 months to get something to kind of, you're taking it there, rather than like feeling like this is just too much. I need to stop doing this, making these reactive sort of decision makings. But to that, I also, every single day of my life since 2014, maybe not every single day up until the last few years, but I would track 0 to 10, how I feel about my life, how I feel about my work, how I feel about my health, right? So this is qualitative data. And what I found was like, I look at the world as like half full or half empty. I realized that when I was like below like a 5, I like could pick apart why I bought a couch. It'd be like, why did I even buy this couch? Like this, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you can pick up when you're half empty. You are just like picking apart the most random things, right? You're in this total reactive like state, like you're in this negative state, but when you're above a 5, you're hopeful, you're filled, like it's like, oh, stuff hits you, it's like, okay, whatever. But what I call it is qualitative awareness, where I began to, because what happens over time is you begin to see the same things pull you down. And it becomes so clear when it's like one person you work with, and it's so clear that like every time you get into a state below, when you wake up and track that number, and it's like when you think about it, you're like, oh, it's because I fought with this person I work with, right? Like I had this disagreement, like, and it's like that happens 3 or 4 times. It's like, okay, I have to change this, right? And I think even for me, like one of the big ones early on was like I didn't understand finances. I just didn't understand finances, and I didn't understand, but money was confusing to me. I just worked really hard and made a lot of it, but didn't understand, like it was this plague. I had 3 or 4 investment advisors, and like, I just like, I had no idea what type of return it was making. Ultimately, that financial aspect of it led me to like, you have to like learn like exactly what you want out of money, and ultimately like, what does money mean to you? And I think like when I finally, that was like a huge breakthrough, because I was in that state of just keep working hard and just keep trying to make money. And eventually you will make so much money that you can figure it out. Right? Rather than like really understanding money, understanding like what you want it for and what it provides you, and then learning to grow money, assets, and value was a huge changer for me, because I grew, I quit high school, had a normal, hardworking, middle-class family from Ohio. They never had any money. It's like, nobody taught me. I was raised by entrepreneur wolves, and it was just like, risk over everything. Like, go, if you want to do it, you got to go do it. When I was young, in my fantasy factory and robbing big days, when I was just, doing thing after thing. Okay, now I got this television platform. I'm going to do this and this. Okay, I'm going to start this show. Like when I'm just doing thing after thing, I used to say, like Dyrdek Enterprises, our money's fearless, right? Because scared money doesn't make money. And it's like, that is a very valid statement, but my money wasn't fearless. It was reckless, right? It was like, I wasn't doing calculated risk investments. I was just being reckless with money, right? So I thought it was more a badge of honor, to make $1 million and lose $1 million, right? Versus like really understanding that, no, it is about long-term value growth that someone like me would have never learned. And they don't, regardless of what state you are in and where you come from, learning and understanding money is still this extraordinary, elusive thing, because people don't share philosophy of what they do with their money, because they don't want you to go do it and lose money and then it's their fault. There's this really taboo way of like sharing like investment advice between peers, and just how to learn it in general. It's like, get a wealth advisor and give them your money to manage it, right? And then really that's just, what they're 90% of them are just driven to make a commission off of your dollars, right? And I have no downside if the market turns on you or your investment turns on you, because they get paid a fee to manage your money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You are preaching to the choir right now, Rob. I actually feel very convicted right now, because I'm definitely guilty of having those swings of burnout, needing to recharge, burning, need to recharge. And what I'm encouraged by is hearing you say that you can actually plan ahead of that by protecting how much capacity you give to each project. I'm curious how that applies into the Dyrdek machine, because you have people who come in and you're not an incubator, you're not a VC fund, you're working with brands that are often in the idea phase where you don't know if it is going to have product market fit or not. And yet I've heard you say when talking about it that your goal is to win on every single one of them. You know that early stage is going to be chaotic. So how does that apply when you're walking into a new opportunity and empowering whoever is at the helm of that new brand?
Well, look, most people don't set out to master the idea stage of business development, right? Because it is the greatest chasm in all of entrepreneurialism, right? And so for me, I realized early on, it's what I absolutely love the most, right? And so it's the most exciting, it's the most fun till you launch, right? Then it is utter and total chaos and just like, you realize everything you don't know once you get there. Now you do that with a purpose, right? With a system, right? So I realized that, okay, this is sort of the phasing that happens. It's always, discovery, diligence, build, launch, scale, right? And so if I now have broken it up into here, now I was like, okay, I want to build from the idea stage, right? So that means I've got to get across the valley of death to product market fit. And as you do it more and more, you begin to see what I'd consider business and entrepreneurs through a multi-dimensional lens, right? Where when I first started doing it through the system, all the because I consider them almost like vintages of wine, like at my 2016 companies, my 2017 companies, my 2018 companies. It's like, because I keep evolving. And because like my knowledge of how to build a company used to be like this, now it's like this, right? I used to look at it as you got brand minds and business minds, and I was both of them. You put it together. After launching, 10 businesses in the first 2 years, it's like and seeing all of the different sort of struggles and evolutions depending on the type of entrepreneurs, because when I first launched, it was do or die entrepreneurs, right? I'm about the person. I'm betting on the person over everything. Give me that grit, fortitude, ambition, and determination, that unwavering belief in themselves that they can create this vision, and like that work ethic. But that is literally just like the engine. But the engine is pointless if you can't find harmony in how a business actually operates. And I realized that some of these extraordinary do or die entrepreneurs were really just great brand and marketing minds, but don't fully understand product development, sales, and certainly don't understand operations or finance. Like I really saw, as I began to develop that it really ends up being the greatest, like CEOs are creative and right and left brain, but have general knowledge in brand, product, media, marketing, sales, operations, and finance. So they can see how the entire engine of a business works and can build strategy to make sure all of it works together harmoniously, right? Because the product people could care less about what the contribution margin is, right? And marketing people all could care less of like where the product line can scale to, because they're just like, give it to me and I could sell it, you know what I mean, type of vibe. So it's the idea of, when I began to see it through that lens, now you become more and more intuitive on the type of ideas and the type of entrepreneurs you will even build with. Because at the end of the day, it's no different than I talk about life and goal setting and anything else, right? Like, it is really like exciting in the idea stage because you're not doing anything yet. Then when you're just building the plan of what you're going to do, oh, it's amazing. But when you go and do it is where the pain starts. And for us, we're ultimately mastering how to accelerate the product market fit, because what happens is we go from weekly meetings to quarterly meetings to just, call me when you need me, versus which then releases more capacity, right? And then the higher the quality of the entrepreneur, the better the idea is, and the clearer the value proposition is, and how and much more clear the consumer is, and where that adoption is going to come from, and how you're going to speak to them and convert them. When all of that is clear, you're going to have a much more accelerated path to product market fit. Now, God forbid you throw on unfair advantages like celebrity investors and earned media opportunities, all these other things, and use your own platform to drive this already very thought out sort of pathway to success. That is where, for me, I get to experience the joy of creation and go through the process, but I get to hand you off and help you put all the bodies in place that you can now go and grow and scale. Because you don't build a company, you grow a company. It is an organic living thing. It does not, it's not a plan that you do. It is a living, growing thing that you have to constantly be nurturing and optimizing to maximize its true opportunity.
So let's walk through an example of this, because you and I are co-investors on at least one project. The one I'm thinking of is Outstanding Foods. And they've gone from like 0 to 1, 2, skip a few 100 million in like 9 seconds or something like that. Like they've done a great job at positioning themselves in the marketplace, getting distribution. And I'm curious what your involvement was in that business from the beginning, because their first product did not hit the awareness that they needed it to in order to have liftoff. And then they had a couple follow-up products that hit, and now the business is growing. So what was your involvement in the beginning stages of that, of getting it to that liftoff it needed?
Yeah, I mean, look, Outstanding Foods is also part of my 2016 vintage, right? When I actually met him, Lewis Howes introduced us.
Yeah,
would be September, October of 2016, right? And initially, for me at that time, at that stage, I was super obsessed with all things financial, right? Because not only did I go on to where financial models used to be like, weird science to me, I didn't understand. And I when I finally really learned, I began to fall in love with financial models, right? And I really began to see like, oh my God, like the matrix that is a business is where I used to think it was through the brand and the product, where now I really believe it's through the lens of the financial model, right? And where some of like your smartest and most creative work has to be done. And at the time, I was just deeply obsessed with like building out these financial plans. And when I was presented with the idea, it started first with like, this is a pigless bacon chip that's an unami mushroom that's fried and tastes like the most delightful piece of bacon chip ever that's plant-based. 25-year vegan, like 25-year vegan products development chef, right? Like, it's like, man, this is special. I'm like, this is so much bigger. At the time, that was called Fresh Soul, and it was the pigless bacon chip by Fresh Soul, right? And like, I'm like, man, what is Fresh Soul? I'm like, you just invented an entirely new category of chips, and like you're not like you're not Hampton Creek and Beyond Meat. Like, you're taking on Doritos. Like, you literally have an entirely new snack vertical to open up. It just happens to be plant-based, and it's delicious, right? Like, and really pushed him to like rethink like the positioning of the brand, like be more aggressive, like be bigger. I'm like, at the top of it's not necessarily about plant-based, it's about taste, you know.
Yes.
And you know, initially I was like, oh, call it like vigilante, be aggressive. And he hit me with pig out, and it was like, whoa, man, that's a little too aggressive, right? And then it was like, but I don't know. And then like we started talking through like, oh, then it could be outstanding foods, could be the parent, then it could go like pig out, chicken out, it can go into all these different verticals. It really then became informed this sort of life feeling. That process, then we went through and completely you know, went through the process of creating the entire brand together, and going out and developing sort of the look and feel, and eventually creating Bay the Pig and all these sort of things, and making this great, amazing brand. But what I learned through Bill Glazer is like, man, this is a multi-dimensional CEO. He's super creative, and like can be very like open to how you can evolve brand storing and positioning. But it was one of the most beautiful tactical revenue models I had ever seen from anyone I was looking at from a business perspective. Then it was that financial background. It was the first time that I truly met like a financial backgrounded individual that had a creative mind.
Would you clarify what you mean by the financial model and the financial background? I don't know that part of the story, but also I don't think of, you know, a snack and foods company as having a great financial model because the margins are really low. So would you clarify what you mean?
Yeah, and so to me, it's number one, he had an investment banking background.
I see.
Right. So he came from like you know, much more from like understanding, creating value, raising money, and what it is. And so as it related to the tactical operating model, it was product for product, like store for store growth on sort of, okay, this is what online needs to be. Here's going to be our first retailers. Here's where we're going to grow to. Here's how our margins are going to grow. This is what our trade costs. Yeah. And it's, you know, the difference is so often, and you know, it kills me because I like, you know, I got one the other day because, you know, I just allow people to make video pitches and send them to me on my website. I, like, rather than send me a deck, you got to make a video if you want to get in front of me. I'd rather like feel your energy and hear your vision. And, you know, I got the age old, like, here is in the first year we're doing 35 million, in the second year we're doing 125 million, right? It's like, man, like, and you know, I want to say like, man, you can't, like, you can't create a bigger red flag. I mean, some high net worth individual who does not understand like money, and who's never going to look at the model, who's buying the vision, you know, maybe. But when you say you're going to do 35 million in the first year and you've never even done, this is the first time in this industry, there is not a chance on earth that's going to happen. All that says is you just don't understand how money works, right? You don't understand how a business even works in the first place. So I digress to, it was the most thoughtful model as it related to every single detail that was real, right? And the problems with the margins, and how you have to ultimately, where you're going to capture that margin at scale, and how you earn it all back, and the milestones you got to hit. It was like the most believable financial model I had ever been presented with, right? And I think even people that start business and try to raise money specifically and don't come from a finance background and don't understand how to create or manage their own model, what do? They hire somebody to build a model for them, right? And so,
or they pray.
Yeah, well, look, they hire somebody, and 9 times out of 10, they'll hire like a guy that like built, like does accounting for like, you know, software companies to try to build a CPG good financial model, and doesn't even have clarity or understanding on all the costs and expenses that go into a CPG business, right? So it's that level of detail that, now again, I was the same way. I started companies for years on financial models I didn't even look at or understand. I raised millions of dollars on financial models I had nothing to do with to understand. And it's like, I reflect back on when the tougher, realer investors would ask me simple questions that I wouldn't understand, and then I would then had no interest in investing many, and it'd be like, why? I got all this energy and passion, like look at what I'm doing. And it's like it's now I get it, you know what I mean, where it's just like, it's just like you just don't fully understand this, right? Like you don't understand a business multidimensionally, right? And that again is, I only started learning that with Outstanding Foods. So even as we developed it, you know, co-packer issues, supply chain issues, the unami mushrooms, that like all this stuff. And he was smart enough to like, this is way more problematic. I'm already late to market. I'm starting to burn money, and pivoted into the pigless pork rinds, seeing the pork rind and keto wave going, right? Like, all right, I'm going to go into this, and in lightning in a bottle. Launched that thing and exploded, right? Like in what it is. And then saw like, wow, here's this new pathway of more functional products. Even the original product line that he had intended, like he bailed on based off of how much success he was seeing in these extruded puff products, and scaled into the Outstanding Puff and takeout, right? Or launched takeout, and then had to transition it to Outstanding Puffs. But that's a perfect example of what you continue to deal with as you're building and scaling a business at a different level. But that's like the process. And I learned so much as it relates to, you know, supply chain can just get you co-packers. You can just get, hey, there's so many waiting time bombs inside, you know, in so many aspects of a business, and why founder market fit is such a huge thing for me at this point. Because there is the learning curve of learning a new industry or new supply chain or new different thing is so big as an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter how good you are, you step into some new one. And what happens to great entrepreneurs who hate their existing industry because it has all these drawbacks, low margins and returns and shelf stability, all this, the things that they hate about it. I'm going to go do this because this has long life stability and like, you know, like all these things, but they're only seeing it through the lens of what their industry that they don't like about it.
That's right.
Rather than looking to their industry and how do I see an opportunity in my expertise and try to build something in that. That's what I've really looked to hunt for more than anything these days.
Rob, you mentioned that people will send you pitch videos about the projects that they're working on. And it also sounds like you really love to be involved in that ideation phase of the business. For example, I did not know you were that involved in the idea phase for Outstanding Foods.
Oh, yeah.
So when an entrepreneur comes to you, there's often this perception in the entrepreneurial world that it is difficult to approach somebody who has pull in the media or who has a big following or who has capital. So there's hesitancy over approaching someone like you that has both capital and a following. How do you like to be approached when somebody is pitching you in one of those videos?
It's still fundamentals. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you know, it's still, you know, I'm on a recent podcast, I've been doing these monologues and like, what I try to tell people is money loves clarity, right? Like you are pitching someone as an investor because they want a return on their money. And like when you can tie together, this is why this is a product that has a unique value proposition. Here's the people that will buy this. This is where they are and how I'm going to get to them and how much of it they're going to buy. And then this is how much it's going to cost me to get them to buy it. This is how much the product costs. This is how much we make. If we make this much money and grow at this rate, it creates this much value that this person would buy it at this multiple. It is like ding, 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 like where there is this beautiful, like simple way to talk through while the opportunity can be a great return. Sorry, I just got a text right here. And most people try to sell like passion. You know what I mean?
Right.
They like, I got this amazing idea. And look, what I like about the video is you can really tell somebody's experience and knowledge on how they talk about their idea for 10 minutes, right? You can see like this is a product person, this is someone that came from sales, this is someone that's got like a brand person who just like sees like a product, this is someone that like, you know, just read an article about RX bar being sold for 600 million. Here's the next RX bar. You know, it's like, but like have no even understanding what that really means. It's like they just, I have this idea and this is, someone will buy it for 600 million. I think that sort of lens is what it is. But it's also, when it's just pitch me, I get just, they're all fascinating, man. And it's really why I've transitioned to like talking to like a lot of people that pitch, just to like give them advice, you know, like, hey, I wouldn't do it, but you should like consider thinking about this when you talk about all this stuff. It's why I just really enjoy like sharing my thoughts, because I think a lot of people have interesting ideas that are one step away from, man, if you just thought about it like this and approached it like this, here's where your actual opportunity is, right? And you know, I find it, you know, super humbling and always like, God, it's so nice that you went through all this to like, you made a video and came to the site and upload. It's not like we promote it that much either. Like we do you know, some posts on social media here and there, and for people to constantly find it and do it, even though we've been doing podcasts with the different people that have pitched, it's still super humbling every time I get one, you know?
Yeah. This is why we make all of our incubator members put together a pitch like that. A, because it gives them the clarity they need to be able to do it. And second, because it prepares them to go out to an investor or an influencer or an advisor and make a clear, concise ask. Whereas most people are just saying like, here's my problem, please fix this problem for me. Yeah. I wanted to wrap by asking you about something I heard you say on the Impact Theory podcast, which was, you said that in your mind, belief doesn't just matter, it's everything. Mm-hmm. That was the fundamental thing that had to be in place. Would you expand on what you meant when you said belief is everything to you?
Well, look, I'm, you know, I think particularly in that one, like I was kind of going through the idea that only people that lose belief give up, right? And to me, it's like, whether it's self-belief, you know, whether it's like your belief in an idea, you grow that, right? And how do you grow that? Well,
you grow your belief, you mean?
You grow your belief, right? And because it's like, in the beginning, you want to do an idea, you go and learn about it. You're growing belief in the idea. Then you build a plan, you share that idea, people validate it. Oh, that's amazing. Then you're like, oh, I think this is going to work. Then you start building the plan, you start learning and seeing it. You're like, oh, this is it. Right. And so now if you fast forward, now you launch this idea and you're back to how I was saying early, these milestones are where you're growing belief and you're learning more and making progress. You're like, man, I can really do this. You get to the first milestone, you're like, man, like now you see the second one clear of what you got to do. You start to really generate belief that like, wow, I'm going to actually accomplish this. This is actually going to work. And to me, I just think that people underestimate like that where confidence and self-belief and belief comes in from in general is, it starts first with how you were raised and the foundation of your early success that basically starts you with a foundation. Now it's on you to just determine what are all the things that you have to do to grow that within yourself. And that is especially true in business, but also in life, right? And then when you become really good at something, what do? You're an expert. You have confidence. You have belief in yourself, like others have belief in you. Like it generates all of that together, which ultimately leads you towards expertise and ultimately something taking less effort that gives you more energy than it takes too, right? In the sense of how powerful belief is in everything that you do.
Yeah, I used to kind of stress out about this because I agree that belief is required. But if I didn't believe something yet, like if I don't believe that I can have $100 million exit or $1 billion valuation or like whatever, if I don't believe that, I would beat myself up over that. Like, why can't I make myself believe this? But to your point, it's more like a muscle that gets built and you find more evidence for it and you choose to kind of operate like that. Might be where faith comes in. It covers the gap of what you don't yet have evidence for. And then you eventually find evidence as you gain more clarity and gain more capacity.
Yeah, but make no mistake, faith is the bridge. But when you lose belief completely, faith is gone.
Amen.
You know, you can't, like, you're not going to keep being faithful when you just know, you go to where it's not going to work. Right. And how do you get to be knowing you can do $1 billion valuation or $100 million exit? Is you grow into that. You know, it's like when I decided in 2016 I was going to build and sell 30 to 50 companies and make $1 billion in liquidity. When I did that, I had never sold a company in my life. Right. I had never built and sold a company in my life. It's like, but this is what I'm going to do. Right. In 2019, we sold 4, right? 3 years later. And it's like when you sell the first one and it's like, oh, whoa, what? Look at us. Like, then it's like, then one you built from scratch. Now that gets acquired and a huge payday. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
I figured I really understand. Now I've been through it. It's going through it. And it's like, now, like, there's like, not only did it help push me into the person that the ideal version of who I wanted to become on all aspects, right? But then it has built this deep core level of belief where it's like every one that I do, I know it's going to go on that path. And if it's twisting or turning in some form or another, I know it, because in the beginning it was like, well, if this doesn't happen, then maybe it won't. So when that thing starts happening, it's like, oh man, okay, yeah, well, at least I saw the one hole that was potential in this thing not finding that way. I know how to look at that again in the future, you know.
Yeah. So, Rob, I want you to know that Build with Rob is becoming my new favorite podcast because it's so specific into the deals that you are doing. I really enjoy that part of it. But I'm curious what type of deals you look for now.
Yeah, look, I mean, I still want it to be idea stage, right? I would never do anything that's post revenue, right? So it's not like, and I would do a deal with someone that has an idea that I can help shape, as long as it has very little capital in it, right? I still want to be first capital in and the most significant stake next to the co-founders, right? And I want to co-fund, you know, almost everything I'm co-founder in, and occasionally I'll do these sort of, they've done the brand development and I just believe so much in them that I'll do it with them. But it's industry agnostic, and you know, really my principles ride through all entrepreneurs and all ideas. It's a matter of like running them through that filter, and it's just so clear to me when it's the right entrepreneur and the right idea. Once you've created everything into such a system and your knowledge becomes so deep, you transition to efficient, effortless, intuitive decision making, and you're feeling so much pure, because I can have a conversation with an entrepreneur about their idea for 10 or 15 minutes and really understand their skill set, the potential of the idea. Then I go and validate that through immersions and data. Then I take my own insights to then shape that a little bit more, then say, if we can do it like this, let's go. So that really, look, I have a water filter system coming out. I'm looking at adaptogen beauty brands. Like I have cannabis sparkling water coming out. Like, you know, there's all of these different things that I'm constantly looking at and evolving, and really open to do just about anything if it feels right with the right founders, you know.
Rob, I hope I am like you when I grow up, And my takeaway from this is defending happiness at all costs is step one. Everything else comes to that. Thank you so much for being here on capitalism.com. It was a joy to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you listen to this entire episode and you're thinking, man, I want to have an idea that lights me up so much that I can present it to Rob or Ryan, or just have that type of launch that gets me excited to continue to go through the hard work and build that confidence and that belief that I can have an 8-figure exit or a 9-figure exit. If you're thinking that right now, it's time we work together, and you can do that inside of our incubator. Just go to capitalism.com/INC. That's Inc. And we can help you get clear on your vision, launch profitably, and build the foundation of a business that you can scale and sell. Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care.